Hello, I am Edema Onchekwa. I am your facilitator for this concluding week of the course. Going by earlier discussions in this course, you should be aware of the relationship between science and technology. You should also be able to identify several situations in life where science and technology have enriched man's lives. The topic of discussion in this week will help to refresh your memory of some of the gains of science and technology. Specifically, this lesson will acquaint you with some of the negative or adverse effects of technological development in our society. It is important to know these because they will enable you to develop an awareness of the problems which confront human beings everywhere. They will also help you to be aware of the fact that the solution to social problems depends on every human being and on bringing together knowledge and understanding derived from every known discipline. Since we have discussed the relationship between science and technology and their uses in week 4, you will not find this unit too difficult to understand. At the end of this unit, you should be able to outline some of the gains of technological development and discuss vividly how technological development has affected society in terms of increase in population, environmental pollution, poverty, and pursuit of peace. Now, gains of technological development. Can you remember the meaning of technology? Don't worry if you cannot. Let us try to understand it. The widespread meaning is the application of scientific knowledge and research with the aim of developing products or processes for the use of man. These products and processes can be found in the areas of agriculture and food production, medicine, architecture, engineering, transport and communication, space exploration, pharmaceutical industries, and so on. In the field of agriculture, for example, technological equipment comprises of plowing machines, tractors, harvesters, and these have tremendously increased production. Agricultural raw materials have also been turned into various forms of manufactured goods. An example is the use of animal skins in the production of leather for manufacturing handbags, wristwatch handles, and so on. Can you think of other examples? In the field of medicine, new drugs and new techniques for curing diseases have been discovered. These have helped to improve the lives of individuals in society. Better surgical techniques and better understanding of the immune system have led to increase in organ and tissue transplants, such as lungs, livers, kidneys, etc. Do you know that through ultrasound techniques, the condition of a developing baby in the womb can be known clearly and quickly? In the areas of agriculture and engineering, incredible structures such as dams, pyramids, artificial lakes, canals, houses, and so on have been built. Biotechnology has helped to improve agriculture and food production by increasing yields of plants and animals. It has also helped in medicine by the development of drugs such as the human insulin used for the treatment of diabetes. We have now outlined some of the gains of technological development. Let us now turn to the negative or adverse effects of development. Adverse effects of technological development on society. You may be aware that some of the worst problems of humanity have either been brought about or increased by science and technology. This is in spite of the many ways in which they have enriched men's lives. Can you mention some of the problems? You are on the right track if you say technological development has caused an increase in world population, caused pollution of air, land, and water, caused poverty, or threatened the pursuit of peace in the world. The mnemonic device for remembering these are the four P's: population, pollution, poverty, and pursuit of peace. They are intimately interrelated with one another and with science and technology. We shall discuss them one after the other. Population. You probably may not know that one of the most serious adverse effects of science and technology is overpopulation. The world's population is doubling approximately every 35 years. The global population in 1974 was approximately 4.0 billion. By the year 2006, it is expected to have increased to 6.8 billion. 75% of the world's inhabitants live in the developing countries, and the highest immediate increments are bound to take place there. The population of Africa, for example, was 275 million in 1960, and it was projected to be 853 million by the year 2000. Nigeria alone has over 100 million people already. What do you think has caused these spectacular increases in recent years? Well, we will be correct to say advances in agricultural and health technologies have brought death rates below birth rates. During the 10,000 year phase of agriculture, minor improvements in agriculture made it possible to obtain a slow but distinctive growth in the world population. This was at a rate of somewhat less than 0.1% per year. Then, around 1750 AD, the agricultural revolution was in full swing. It brought about three areas of development. One, improved crop growing methods, such as in crop rotation, which eliminated land fallow method. Two, advances in livestock breeding. And three, the invention of new farm equipment, such as machines for planting, cultivating, and harvesting crops. These effects, the effect of these was increase in food production. This effect, when added to that of industrial revolution, which is increase in standard of living, resulted in increased birth rate and decreased death rate. This trend has continued till today, in spite of the fact that some of the countries are trying to curtail birth rates through various means, such as natural family planning or the use of condoms. You will agree that the links between these population increases and technology are obvious. For instance, adverse seasons could no longer cause famine because of improved food production and distribution. Epidemic diseases no longer reduce population because standard of feeding and had risen, and advances in environmental sanitation and increasing sophistication of medical treatment had decreased death rates. Is it not both interesting and terrifying to consider the fact that what was apparently a beneficial aspect of technology, the reduction of death rate due to effective control of disease and famine, has generated the problem of overpopulation? Pollution. It may interest you to know that too many people can cause depletion of natural resources and energy. It also gives rise to poverty and pollution. They are all interlinked and are aggravated by overpopulation. The deterioration of the human environment, in particular, is a problem that arises as a result of industrialization brought about by science and technology. When man was using his hands as his only tool, that is in the ancient time, his impact on the environment was small. But as soon as he had power tools and machines to extract coal, oil, and other fossil fuels from the earth in large quantities, he began to generate power, such as electricity, gas, kerosene, etc. He also began to deplete the natural resources at an unprecedented rate. Power, however, is absolutely necessary to run an industrialized society, but power also pollutes. We're discussing about pollution, that power pollutes. Power includes the use of petroleum, gas, kerosene, and other aspects of crude oil. If you can get some copies of the Nigerian dailies or magazines, you can read stories on the pollution of the land, water, and air of the states of the South South and other oil producing states of the country. From the map of Nigeria, you can observe that the oil producing states are Delta, Edo, Rivers, Bayelsa, Imo, etc. The natives of these states are not particularly happy about the activities of the oil companies located there. Such oil companies include the Royal Dutch Shell Group, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Texaco, Agip, which is Italian, and Elf, which is French. The unhappiness of these people can be gleaned from the following statements. Since Shell began drilling oil in Ogoniland in 1958, the people of Ogoniland have had pipelines built across their farmlands and in front of their homes, suffered epidemic oil leaks from these very pipelines, and have been forced to live in constant flaring of gas. This environmental assault has smothered land with oil, killed masses of fish and other aquatic life, and introduced devastating acid rain to the land of the Ogoni. For the Ogoni, a people dependent upon farming and fishing, the poisoning of the land and water has had devastating economic and health consequences. The above passage has said almost everything about pollution. If you are now asked to define pollution, can you say so? Can you do so? I believe you can. You are right if you say that pollution is a release of substance or energy into the environment in quantities which are harmful to man or other living things. A pollutant, therefore, is a substance whose presence in the environment is harmful. Examples of these chemicals: garbage, noise, heat, acids, etc. It is necessary to know that although some pollutants occur naturally, like oil seepage from undersea deposits and from volcanoes, most of them are produced by human activities. They can affect air, water, and land. Can you list air pollutants? You are right if you list things like exhaust fumes, domestic and factory smoke, poisonous gases like carbon monoxide, ozone, etc. Air pollution affects human beings directly by causing smearing of the eyes, coughing, and respiratory distress. Air pollution can alter the Earth's climate significantly. The threat to climate arises from the retention of a high level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which gives rise to a greenhouse effect. Human activities such as combustion, deforestation, and release gases such as carbon dioxide methane, chlorofluorocarbons, CFC, etc., in high quantities into the atmosphere. These gases are called greenhouse gases because they change the flow of light and heat energy through the atmosphere. Together, they act as an insulating blanket covering the planet. They do this by absorbing and returning to the Earth's substance much of its outgoing heat, that is, infrared energy radiations. They trap this heat within the lower atmosphere, thus warming it. This is known as global warming. You might have heard of global warming in the news. It is a natural or human induced increase in the average temperature of the atmosphere near the Earth's surface. Various studies have provided sufficient evidence to indicate that this change in climate would have important effects on life. For instance, it can affect agricultural livestock, increase rise in sea level, and modify ocean circulation, cause regional famine, desertification, forest fires, and flood. Water pollution, as you might be aware of, includes industrial wastes, oil spillage from oil refineries, leakages from petroleum tankers, etc. These are washed into rivers, streams after the rain. All these render the water unfit for drinking. All pollutants constitute danger also to aquatic life through suffocation. This is what happens in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, where the oil companies operate. Other water pollutants include human feces, fertilizers, soaps, detergents, and so on. Rainwater ordinarily is slightly acidic because it dissolves atmospheric carbon dioxide to form carbonic acid. Scientists in 1970 discovered that some countries like Scandinavia, Northeast USA, Southern Canada, Northern Europe, and Japan experienced rains that were becoming more acidic and more devastating. Sorry. This is as a result of accumulation of nitrous oxides from power plants and from automobile emissions, and sulfuric oxides mainly from power plants and smelters in the atmosphere. These dissolve in rainwater to form nitric acid and sulfuric acid. These acids in the rainwater fall on the earth to bathe forests and cities and fill the lakes with corrosive mix. The rains cause reduction or elimination of fish in many lakes. You may be aware that land pollution is caused mainly by industrial waste, such as tailings from steel plants. It can cause the land to be rock-like and deprive it of its nitrogen. Other industrial waste from tanning, textile and iron industries, refuse from the cities, metal scraps, as well as abandoned garbage cause land pollution. Do you know that noise is a form of land pollution? It constitutes a social problem in many developed and developing countries. Very often, noise in excess of 90 decibels, when noise can cause permanent loss of hearing, exists in technologically advanced society. Such noise often comes from jet planes, jackhammers, and very loud music. In addition, Such noise can be damaging to human health. Let us take a break. Pollution, as we have already said, can affect the land, water, and air. It is important to know that pollution crisis goes hand in hand with energy crisis. In advanced countries, the so-called amenities which make life so convenient are often responsible for an insatiable energy demand. Homes are heated and air conditioned by energy consuming devices, and many of them use electricity. The affluent countries are the worst offenders. It has been estimated that the US alone, whose population is only 6% of the world's population, consumes 40% of the Earth's natural resources output. The rich invariably pollute more than the poor. The poor people in rich countries suffer the effects of pollution more than the rich. This inequality can give rise to social and economic tension. Poverty. Do you know what it means in human terms to be poor? It's malnutrition, protein deficiency with possible brain damage in children, corrosive hunger, famine, lack of medical care, poor health, diseases, suffering, illiteracy, unemployment, apathy, and despair. Even in the richest of countries, there are pockets of poverty. Majority of people in the world, however, are poor. And furthermore, although the rich consume the world's resources at a much greater rate than the poor, they are getting richer faster than the poor. The continent of Africa has the lowest gross national product, GNP, per capita in the world. GNP is a measure of national wealth. There is obviously a strong link between overpopulation and poverty. It is due to the fact that food and other resources are not increasing at the same rate as population that there is poverty. Although there has been very significant improvement in world food production, it is still far below population growth despite all current national, bilateral, and international efforts to reverse this trend. Pursuit of peace. It is an irony that man, throughout his long and tortured history, has pursued peace mostly by waging war. And when an interval of peace is achieved, it is often utilized to prepare for war. In time of peace, they say, prepare for war. The pursuit of peace arises simply as an indication of the kinds of problems that pose a major threat to mankind. An example is a cause of possible extinction. This is because of its interactions with science, technology, and education. The founders of UNESCO considered peace important enough to cite it in the very first sentence of the Constitution, which reads, "Since wars began in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defense of peace must be established." End of quote. This suggests at once that UNESCO, the international organization devoted to education, science, and culture, considers the pursuit of peace its long range target. Let us briefly review some of the most recent examples of the impact of science and technology on warfare. Since the days of bow and arrow, the skills of technologists and the ingenuity of engineers have been utilized in the design and production of weapons. Modern industrialized society is characterized by mass production of goods. First, mass production of weapons and their use were felt for the first time in the First World War. The war led to inventions that rapidly improved methods of communication, radio, transportation, that's the aeroplane, and the reconnaissance, aerial photography, to cite just three examples. It also generated the development of huge cannons and chemical agents, which were used for the first time in the most widespread, lethal, and destructive war which had ever taken place. Science and technology thus made devastation possible on an unprecedented scale. Only 20 years later, however, the Second World War produced developments that dwarfed those of the First World War. The participation of the scientists in warfare, which had paid off during the First World War, was increased and magnified during the Second World War. But a new dimension was added, and that was the use of scientific knowledge, which has just barely been discovered in the laboratory. The commonest example of this was, of course, the development of atomic bomb. The financial, scientific, industrial, and technological efforts that were required to produce the first bomb exceeded any previous similar effort in history. It required a 2-year crash program that brought together the leading scientists of the world, and it cost $2 billion. The bomb was dropped by the Americans on two Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. A total of 152,000 people were killed within a few minutes of dropping the bomb. The scientists who participated in the Second World War were not after scientific pursuits, which are which are they were they not primarily motivated. The bomb was dropped by the Americans on two Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. A total of 152,000 people were killed within a few minutes of dropping the bomb. The scientists who participated in the Second World War were not after scientific pursuits, which were primarily motivated by a desire to understand phenomena in the natural or man made worlds. The period of uneasy peace called the Cold War that followed the Second World War was characterized by suspicion among former wartime allies. It was also characterized by a furious and extremely costly technological race that led to the development by the superpowers of the fusion of hydrogen bomb. This bomb is at least 50 times more powerful than the atomic bomb. Later, these superpowers felt that there was the need for sophisticated methods of delivering nuclear weapons. This led to another spectacular development, that is, the orbiting Earth satellites. The Russians were the pioneers, and many nations then joined the mad race for supremacy of outer space. To illustrate this, in 1974 alone, there were 500 Earth satellites orbiting the Earth at the same time. They were clearly used for scientific investigation, but it was obvious to the whole world that the technology can also be used for reconnaissance and rapid delivery of nuclear weapons, since it takes less than 90 minutes for a low altitude satellite to orbit the Earth. The social responsibility of scientists and the reciprocal responsibility of society. One interesting thing to note is that, having seen the havoc wrought by the misuse of science and technology and other threats posed to mankind by it, some scientists have begun to readdress the issue in respect of what can be done in order that mankind and our planet may survive. How can we, they ask, put science and technology together to work for the benefit of mankind? The events of the Second World War awakened many scientists to this responsibility. Some of them joined existing organizations or formed new ones for the purpose of giving expression to this concern. The physicists who had worked on the bomb and other defense projects were amongst the most active. Einstein, a pacifist, regretted the disaster caused by his brainchild, the atomic bomb. Before his death on 18th April 1955, he urged scientists worldwide to realize that it was a duty to prevent the annihilating weapons from being used. Some of the groups that were formed include Scientists and Engineers for Social and Political Action, CESPA. It was formed in 1969 by a group of US scientists and engineers who pledged not to participate in war research or weapons production, but to counsel their students and to urge their colleagues to follow their examples. 2. British Society for Social Responsibility in Science, BSSRS. It was formed at about the same time as CESPA. This organization was signed to make scientists aware of the social significance of science and of their social responsibility as individuals, and to assist scientists in creating an informed public that can exercise a choice in scientific matters. This unit has revealed to us the adverse effects of science and technology. It is because the scientists and technologists do not pay much attention to planning, direction, and guidance that these adverse effects have manifested. This suggests that new and improved ways of teaching and learning science must be devised. Science education must be closely linked with social responsibility. The main points in this lesson are: 1. Technological development has improved every aspect of man's life: agriculture, medicine, architecture, engineering, transport, and communication. 2. Some of the worst problems of humanity have either been brought about or aggravated by science and technology. Some of these problems include population increase, pollution of air, land and water, poverty, and threats to the pursuit of peace. Some scientists joined existing organizations or formed new ones in order to help scientists, technologists, and other laymen to be aware of the social responsibility of science.